just what did William Burroughs call the red that of the blood in the hypodermic needle before you actually put down the
Mm.
plunger, and it gives incredible pleasure to people. And they say, just one more time, just one more time. And that's what that lady was saying to me. That's a success addiction. And that is absolutely implicated in the dopamine system. And that is like any other behavioral addiction that a lot of very worldly successful people fall prey to. A lot of people listening to us. And I'm glad they're listening to us right now because they want an edge. But you got to ask yourself. Arthur has to ask himself, and Peter has to ask himself, and all the people listening to them have to ask themselves, is this a pathology that I'm actually feeding by actually trying to get this edge? And I hope it's not. And I hope it's not for me, but I know a lot of people where it is. And we talk about workaholism. There's a lot of literature on workaholism. Workaholism is an ancillary addiction to success addiction. People work really, really hard. The payoff, the cookie that you get, that the dopamine is just driving you to, is the promotion, is the raise, is the dollar, is the compliment, is the adulation on social media. That's where the real addiction is coming in. And those are the people that are going to be sacrificing their own happiness decisions for these success metrics.
Do we have a sense of, I mean, this is an unanswerable question, so I'll rephrase it in kind of a more theoretical sense. What would the world look like today if no one was pursuing being special over being happy? Like what year would we be living in, right? Would it be 1842 right now? Like, in other words, what I'm really getting at is how much of the modern marvels of this world do we owe to the backs of people who sacrificed their own happiness for the innovation that allows us to be doing what we're doing right now?
It's such a smart question, and I've considered this myself. For me to say, you and I should break our success addiction. Therefore, the world would be better if nobody had a success addiction, is the fallacy of composition. It's to basically say, since I get home faster if I go 100 miles an hour down the freeway, it would be better if everybody drove 100 miles an hour on the freeway. Now, you live in Texas, so you're like, yeah, actually, that would be better. But anyway, but it's that is really, really relevant, because what you find is that the many of the greatest innovators, composers, creative intellects, these were people that absolutely sacrificed their happiness, that were deeply, deeply unhappy. Look, there's a huge literature that shows what is it? The ventrolateral prefrontal cortex is stimulated by in depressives in a way that makes them highly creative. I mean, we actually have good brain science at this point that shows that people who are suffering from mood disorders, they tend to be disproportionately creative, and they do a lot. It's not, Van Gogh was not the outlier, it turns out. There's a lot of weird people in Silicon Valley that have a lot of pretty untreated maladies, and they're doing a lot. Now, you might say in Silicon Valley, a lot of them are doing a lot of harm for society as well. But the point is that it is true that the world has been propelled by a lot of unusual people with unusual goals. And so I don't know how I would, if I were the divine, how I would create the universe. I don't know how I would designate people in society. I don't know whether I would make people sacrifice their happiness for the greater good of the whole. I'm just not sure whether there's a kind of a success martyrdom that's going on here.